Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of ReTFOS, where I take old videos and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Space Soap Opera, written by RegalLegalEagle. Zanrathi Star Citadel, orbiting the central world ring.
I really don't know why you're so worried,
Senior field actress Delilah Monroe said as they walked through the halls of the Zanrathi Star Citadel. Because if this doesn't work, we'll be killed. First-class technician Bernard Bernardson replied in what was something between a hiss and a whisper.
You can talk openly, darling. They aren't listening to us yet. They don't care. The Zanrathi technocracy has ruled the stars for millennia. They are, if nothing else, completely confident in their superiority over all other nations. We're nothing more than toddlers to them. Besides, they don't believe in torture, so if this doesn't work, at least our deaths will be quick.
How is that better? The technician blurted out.
Because Sophia, that old witch, has to sell the other side of our little story to the Holy Kalantu Empire. And if she doesn't make it convincing, she's going to die very slowly. Maybe she'll actually give the convincing performance for once in her life.
Delilah sniffed a little, her nose up in the air, before they came to a stop before the final set of doors that would lead them to the meeting chamber. She looked down over her outfit for a moment, tugging at the military uniform and picking off any tiny piece of lint with a disapproving click of her tongue. Then she pulled out her usual mirror and touch-up kit, examining herself and nodding in satisfaction and putting it away.
Try to say as little as possible. I understand your acting skills are quite poor, but you were the only technician that we could find who had any experience. Any experience? The longest I was ever on stage was in a high school play, in the first act as a beggar with one line, and in the second as a tree. I was a stagehand for the rest of the times,
Bernard quickly explained, but Delilah didn't look at the least bit worried. And again, even if she was, she wouldn't let it show.
Well then, you've at least seen people act. Now just keep in mind they never compliment each other, so they're very susceptible to flattery. Thus, if one of them takes a fancy to you, just take one for the team and think of it as an audition.
She stepped forward then to press her hand on the door to make it open as Bernard blinked in confusion.
What? Take one for the team?
He asked, his mind racing with more worried thoughts.
Action, darling,
Delilah reminded him as she walked forward with a smile. The technician had to clutch his gear to his chest and rush forward after her. The room was large, yet mostly taken up with giant statues and pictures to commemorate the finest Zanrathi moments in their long and storied history. Neither of the humans even came up past the bases of any of the massive works of stone and metal, but Delilah didn't even glance at them. She just walked straight ahead to the gathering of Zanrathi arrayed around a throne at the far side of the chamber. Once, the Zanrathi had held court in such chambers, showing off their power and dominance for all the foes and subjects. But now the humans were all that ever visited.
Prenus, darling, you look as radiant, as well put together as always. I think you must be using a new polish. Your head is shinier than ever. Oh, dare I say that you make your new paint job look simply marvelous. The 3-meter-tall mass of muscle and metal that must be the Technolord Granus the Destroyer shifted a little in his throne at the heap of compliments.
Thank you. Your hips seem to be proficient for childbirth.
The purple flesh Xeno seemed to make the sound that was like clearing his throat, but it wasn't even clear if he still had a throat in that cybernetic chassis of his.
Oh, Cronus, you old smooth talker, how the female units must line up for the chance to be impregnated with your superior DNA.
Delilah replied with a laugh, as if the Technolord was the smooth and silk with his attempt at banter.
The line isn't as long as it used to be,
he replied, causing Delilah to laugh at his retort, but Bernard wasn't even sure the Xeno was joking.
Now, I'd love to keep you prattling away like we used to, but I bring dire news, and while I know you love to socialize, I suspect you'll want this information.
She smiled as she looked over at Bernard, who blinked and looked back at her, frozen in place. When she glared and then motioned towards the Xeno, Bernard finally remembered what he was here for.
Hello, grand, terrifying Cranus
His mind went totally blank for a moment. Cranus, he looked at Delilah, who frowned obviously, not realizing what was happening.
Cranus the Manus,
Bernard finally finished. The Xeno stood up at that, servos whirring and gears clanking to move his giant body.
Kranos the Manus, rather than my self-chosen title. You dare call me this?
The Xeno bellowed, arms raising as his shoulder cannon seemed to activate. Yes, Bernard tried, and the Xeno then seemed to think it over.
Kranos the Manus, I like this name. Very well, little human. What dire news do you bring me?
Bernard blinked up at the massive hulk before him before he began to open his gear bag. We intercepted a transmission from the, religious people? He looked at Delilah and gulped, as his ability to remember names fled him. Those moronic zealots of the Kanluthu, darling. Delilah cut in, then realizing the issue finally. You must forgive my assistant. He's obviously smitten with desire at the sight of your amazingly beautiful and efficient daughter. Bernard blinked as he looked at the rest of the Zenrathi around him. One of the, slightly more feminine, maybe? Xenos seemed to turn away for a moment, letting out a rather robotic tee-hee. Oh, fuck me, Bernard whispered out, but to his horror, Kranos seemed to hear that.
Mirth and enjoyment. This one is very forward, is he not? You have the most amusingly emotional companions.
As he said that, the other Zenrathi all began to echo out the word mirth over and over, as if it was their form of laughing, just saying mirth over and over. Bernard was slightly put off, but his focus was brought back to Kranos.
There might be time for that later, brazen flesh puppet, but first, this transmission.
Oh, yes, Bernard began to pull his system out of the gear bag when he heard Kranos speak again.
Mirth, mirth, mirth. You think to show us anything on that pitiful display built by your fleshy appendages? Bring it up on the main screen.
He shouted that last part, raising his arms up. Then, as the giant screen began to drop out of the ceiling, it had to be the largest screen Bernard had ever seen. No one spoke, as it took a full 4 minutes to finally complete its drop, before it settled into place with a mechanical whine. The Zenrathi stood there, watching the black screen, as Delilah snapped her fingers to get Bernard's attention, and then nodded at the corner of the display. Oh, he realized what the cables he'd been given were for, and walked across the room to find the ports on the side. Fumbling with the adapters for a moment, he began to plug his computer into the giant screen before hitting play on the video file they'd, found. When the very small image appeared at the very center of the screen, Bernard gulped in realization that their video had no way to fill the absolutely massive screen the Zenrathi had built. But before he could explain, Kranos roared out,
"Why is it so tiny? Computer, make the flash puppet video expand to the whole screen!"
When it jumped in size and it was also stretched out and blurry, it didn't appear to be anything coherent. Again, Bernard was going to explain when Kranos roared once more,
"Computer, enhance the image!"
Well, I mean, there isn't enough resolution, so enhancing it won't... Enhancing? A vaguely feminine voice spoke up from nowhere. Then, to Bernard's extreme surprise, the video became perfectly clear. How? What? But I didn't think that was possible, he blurted out.
Not to inferior flesh puppets, of course, but to the mighty Zenrathi technocracy. No technology is beyond our reach.
Crane bellowed out before sitting back down in his throne.
Now start over. I missed the first part.
Bernard quickly started the video over again. It seemed to show a Grand High Overlord Archbishop Chancellor Zigagnox of the Divine Impeccable Sentinel of the Faith sitting on his own throne speaking. This is where Bernard gulped and figured that they were dead. They couldn't use CGI because the Zenrathi would spot it from a mile away. So they had to use a more practical setup, and he was just positive the Xenos could tell that it was an animatronic reptile, not the real thing. Zealots of faith, it is time. I have been given a sign from the divine himself. We are to take to the stars once more. The Zenrathi, in their decrepit starrings and fortresses, have thought themselves the young upstart rulers of the galaxy. Let them not forget that we, the Kanluthu, have existed long before and shall exist long after their demise. They haven't taken a new system in thousands of years. Their ships turn to rust, and fall apart as they fail to go to war against the pathetic insects that now plague the nearby systems. The human. Today is the day I declare a crusade against the Zanrathi and their allies. For why else would they not smite these pitiful wretches? Perhaps they lack the power as their fleets crumble around them. The Ganlathu shall be victorious in this. Nothing shall stop our divine fervor. Bernard then grimaced as there were some reaction shots of hordes of Cantluthu Brazilians cheering to the news. He set a hand over his face, watching between his spread fingers as he thought he spotted the same footage recycled a few times. They were dead. They were dead. Crane would blow his head into mush with his plasma cannon. When he heard the Xeno behind him roar out, Bernard gulped and closed his eyes. This was it. He was dead. How dare they? Bernard slowly unclenched. The Canlathu speak of us this way? Those inefficient, delusional, arrogant, obtuse, poorly designed, organic, religious, inefficient, reproductive organs. Bernard wasn't sure of the choice of words from the Xeno, but he could clearly see the Xeno had bought their video. I know, darling, it's simply dreadful, isn't it? Delilah said that. This is why we had to show you. Now, of course, we would simply never think of ourselves as worthy of being your allies. We, weak, simple little flesh puppets have only just started to obtain technology to enhance our fragile organics with superior cybernetics, but the Canlathu don't know any better. They mean to destroy us both. I fear this could mean only one thing. She gasped out and then turned to the side, her head tilted back, the back of her right hand pressed against her forehead, and her left arm stretched out back in what Bernard figured was supposed to be a dramatic pose. No one was saying anything then, and he looked around at the Zanrathi before he realized what Delilah was waiting for. What, pray tell, does that mean? He couldn't control the strange inflection on his words, and he grimaced, but he continued as he hadn't messed up. War, she shouted, bringing her hands up to her face before striking an expression he thought might be horror. Maybe indigestion? No, it was horror. Outrageous! To think the Canlathu would dare to insult our fleet. They are the ones who have let their empire fall to ruins around them. If we had not needed our grand fleets to fend off species 99-3143-4324-6631 invasion 5,000 years ago, then we would have ground them to dust. We shall wait no longer. Delilah, of course, your weak flesh puppet bodies will not be of use to us in this war, but we shall give you some limited designs so your people may join us in this war. And you, he pointed to Bernard, what is your name, human? Bernard. Bernardson, sir, Mr. Tech Lord Cranus the Manners, he stammered out. When the time comes, Double Bernard, my female unit offspring, shall replicate with you atop the pile of bodies of our enemies. But that time is not now. You will have to contain your genetic material in 10 then. Now, leave us. With that, Delilah made the strange gesture with her hand in the air, as if mixing the air before bowing low. Of course, my darling friend, I shall wait for new commands from you with bated breath. She made an exaggerated flourish then with her arms before she made for the door. Bernard gulped and quickly began to pack up his gear, zipping up bags and shut quickly. I just, gotta go? He finally stammered out before chasing after the other human. Once he had caught up to her in the hall, he waited for the door to close behind them before speaking. How did that work? They're unbelievably advanced. We have no idea how their engines work or how they harness such immense power for their warships and on a personal note, I think the most bullshit technology of them all is to somehow make more pixels appear like magic. How could they not see that that was a shitty animatronic suit and some extras in what looked like a rubber masks? The Zanrathi ruled over the sector of the galaxy for thousands of years.
They were harnessing the power of suns while we were trying to figure out how the hell to eat artichokes. But they never had theater, no films, no TV shows, nothing. So not only are they so completely confident that they've figured out all there is to know about the universe and technology, but there isn't any room in their mind to even conceive of a chance that a pitiful little flesh puppets like us could deceive them. Delilah smiled at that and laughed. What god would think an insect could lie to it? Well, what about the Canlathu? Bernard asked then as they headed out to their ship. They don't have TV either. Since they are extremely religious, they've got a better understanding of theater. But that hardly matters, because why would they doubt our word when they discover Zanrathi's ship starting to mass, in order to purge the galaxy of the religion once and for all? We may not share the light of their divine god, but we humble servants will, of course, forever pledge ourselves to them if they come to our defense. We're new to the galactic stage, but manipulating these fools is child's play. She laughed once more. Is that why we have no friends and are barred from the Core World Alliance? Bernard asked them. I assure you, that was all part of the plan, she said with a smile. Now let's report our success to our superiors and, well, we'll have to get you some cybernetic hips so Kranis's daughter doesn't crush them when the time comes. Wait, what? Core World Alliance Council of Nimki 7.
We would like to discuss the humans,
the current Federation Prime Minister, Agnot Engelberg, said from his place at the circular table.
They've stopped almost all trade, and they aren't pestering us to join the Alliance anymore. Does anyone know why?
The insectoid Trintix Queen fluttered her wings. Our scouts bring us worrisome news. They say there is a war between the Zanrathi and the Canlathu, and somehow the humans are involved. Of course they are. Who else would be stupid enough to settle next to not only one, but two of the galaxy's oldest, most powerful, and most hostile empires? I'm sure they're being torn apart by the Zanrathi and Canlathu for some trivial purpose. I'd have expected them to beg for our help, though. The rocky-faced overforeman of the Na'arishim snorted from his seat. The humans are not being attacked, the Queen informed them. We don't know why. The Zanrathi and Canlathu tear at each other, but the humans do not seem to be affected. We are most perplexed.
How can that be? The first principal, Nanray, asked from inside his water tank. You must be mistaken. I'm sure they've done something to piss off the empires. They're always meddling with things they don't understand. When we first met them and traded them for two of our warp cores, rather than simply take them apart and learn from them as we expected, they fused them together in an attempt to go twice as fast and instead blew up a star. They instead continued to use gate travel. It's highly unstable. They'd rather take a shortcut through hell than develop a slower, safer travel method. They're mad, all of them. Still, Ingebrigtsen spoke up again, all they've ever done is try to join the Alliance. They do have democratic systems despite their oddly militant culture. Why would they suddenly cut off ties with us if they aren't under attack? Maybe it is a ploy, the Queen asked then. From the humans, the Nutshireen snorted. They're so blatant about everything. They have all the subtlety of an avalanche. What if? The slender hind enchantress of the Tixnalactal spoke up from behind her mask. What if they've found a way to harness the powers of those two great empires? What if they are building up a force to attack us as revenge for being left out of the Alliance? They wouldn't dare, the Narashim roared out, slamming his fist onto the table. We'd crush their pitiful navy. They're decades behind us in tech. Yet they seem to jump decades and years in months, the Queen cautioned. Which is why we didn't have them in the Alliance in the first place, the first principal shouted. They are reckless and maniacal with their so-called research. They'll one day surely create a weapon that will obliterate the galaxy and claim that they were just trying to study how the universe works. They create small black holes to study already. It's dangerous and forbidden. Not to mention they lop off bits of themselves to replace with cybernetics willingly. And they have a very storied past with religion,
The Prime Minister mused. Do you think that maybe they somehow allied themselves with both the Zanrathi and the Canlathu? You've seen how blunt and tactless their diplomats are with us. They lack the skill and grace necessary of such an impossible feat. The High Enchantress dismissed. Well, we need to take a vote, Ingleberg mentioned. I must once more put forth my plan to bring them into the alliance. They're crazy and reckless, but I'd rather have them on our side. The others began to mutter quietly with their aides when First Principal Nanery had a small text pop up in the data slate. It had no information about who it was from, but he glanced over with the Nesharim. Are you sleeping with my wife? He blurted out, as the Rocky Xeno looked stunned for a moment, and then coughed.
Why? Why would you ask such a thing? Who told you?
He tried to divert the question.
That's not important. Are you sleeping with my wife? Was that your dirt I found in her tank?
I am the Overvarman of Nesharim.
I shouldn't be subjected to such wild accusations.
And with that, the council fell into bickering and arguing before the vote could be held. Government spire on Earth. Sir Director Generals Rosewater and Sanchez are both finishing up their principal shoots, so we'll have more invasion footage to send to the Zanrathi and Canlathu. Admiral Bay is reporting total success of the Pyrotechnics Corps in their mock space battles as well, though he's rather over budget. He really did blow up some of the ships we gave him, said it couldn't be faked. Will you please allow me to send our Tactical Accountants Division to bring him under control? Cynthia had been with the president long before he'd taken office, so while she may have had the title of secretary, she was truly one of the more powerful figures of the government.
Nonsense.
President Teddy snorted at the idea.
Some things truly can't be faked. If the footage is anything like he's done before, then it's just what we need. The Zanrathi love explosions. The Admiral knows his audience. Some things just require throwing enough money at them, and faking being at war is one of them.
Very good, sir. Reports from the Corworld Alliance Council say that the dissent is forming thanks to our leaked footage of the Nesharim and the First Principal's wife.
Excellent. Tell the Prime Minister that the High Enchantress is really her evil twin sister. That'll help to stir things up even more.
He grinned at the idea, stroking his moustache. Well, next to him, his personal barber began to lather up some shaving cream. He never missed his daily shave. Is the High Enchantress really her evil twin sister? Cynthia asked. She hadn't heard that.
I have no idea, but I know the Prime Minister is very paranoid about that sort of thing. Oh, and get Jet Granite to feck the Trinix Queen already. I want them to stop feeding their scouts information to the others, damn it.
He slammed his fist on the desk to make a point before leaning back as his barber began to lather up his face for his shave. His moustache took a lot of work to keep perfect. I spoke with Chet, and he's not very interested in the idea, Cynthia informed him.
Boulder crap. Tell that man that he has a duty. A duty to his country, a duty to all humanity. We need him to fuck a bug. So, fuck he must.
I tried your usual style on him, sir. He said that he won't do it for less than 50 million, and on a pet project of his that films on New Italia for 6 months. The president snorted, but kept still with his barber. Shall I counter with 30 million and filming for 4 months? She asked, to which the president gave her a thumbs up. And what shall we do about the Wolverine Empress? They're expecting more input from us about the invasion of the Corworld Alliance. The president waited for his barber to pull back his razor so that he could talk.
Release the footage of her son with Olivia Hotpants.
That's not how her name is pronounced, sir, Cynthia replied, though she made a note of the plan.
I don't care how it's pronounced. The public will have a field day with it, and his arranged marriage to the Princess of Caledombia will be in trouble. While the Empress deals with the fallout, it'll give us some time to splinter the Corworld Alliance, and once she invades, we'll sweep in and be the heroes, forming a new alliance with us in charge. Speaking of, have the ambassador tell them he's got a triple cancer or something, just to get him out of there, to make it look like it's a health thing. And we'll send a new ambassador soon, which we won't. Oh, and call up Governor of the Orion Traverse and tell him to pretend there's been a sector-wide outbreak of bionuclear anthrax. That'll scare the Trixton scouts from entering our territory and blind them to our fake war.
Trintix, she corrected.
Whatever, he grumbled. How's the actual war going anyway?
The Zinrathi and the Canlathu really do hate each other. Both sides are taking heavy losses and gaining no ground. We haven't even needed to try and intervene. Our salvage teams are putting in more than even our highest projections. Will we be following up with an actual invasion of their territories?
Course not. Let them wear themselves out. We don't have the power to take them on yet. Even in this weakened state, maybe in 50 years. But by then, they'll have become dependent on us, and we'll enter as liberators and saviors, not conquerors. Rumor-mongering and gossip, that's how we take over. That, and a military to back it all up, of course.
He finally settled back down to let his barber work, as Cynthia nodded and headed out of the room to let him enjoy his shave. From there, she was going to have to schedule some reshoots on the desert invasion and oversee the new design of their rubber Ken Luthor suits for the extras. Then she was going to have to get several superstars to get over their egos and work together in the latest series of propaganda footage. After that would be the inevitable clamor of their scientists about which projects needed the most funding with their new salvage from the war, and they simply didn't have the budget to follow every possible lead at the same time. All of this before lunch. It wasn't easy running a fake war and planning a real one at the same time. But for a species that had been pretending to fend off alien invasions from before the first actual encounter with another spacefaring race, it was likely they'd been practicing for hundreds of years for this mission. Movies and military, war and theater, the two pillars of human society, interwoven into one unstoppable force. In a way, she thought that it was a little unfair for the other species, but really, she was looking forward to a human-dominated galaxy more, because no one else had movies even half as good as them. End of story.
I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.